enough. And we're going to talk about this in the context of where we all are, I guess, stuck at our homes and working from home. So before we begin, why don't we do a quick introduction to both of us, the primary speakers over here. So on the left is me, that is Ash Bijur. I'm the CTO of Accion Labs. As you can see, I like to cycle. That's my primary mode of commuting. I call myself the chief geek of the organization, and my responsibility is to oversee what we call as the Accion Innovation Center in Accion. And I work with almost every customer in the early stages of every engagement in terms of selection of technology, architecture, design, road mapping, etc. Himesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, this is Himesh. I'm the digital architect at Accion Labs. I head the architecture and digital platform center of excellence at Accion Labs. As you can see, I'm mostly based out of Philadelphia area, Greater Philadelphia area, in the New Jersey part of the world. I'm excited to talk to you guys about digital transformation today. So, Ash, as the CTO of Accion, could you help introduce our audiences to Accion Labs and who we are, what do we do?
Certainly. I'll keep it short. This is not a sales webinar, but I think it'll be useful to set the context of who we are as an organization, and why do we feel that we can talk about digital transformation in the first place. So Accion is a relatively young company. We started Accion about 9 years ago now, just under a decade. And the entire premise of starting Accion was the recognition that the entire process of developing software and applications had undergone a major transformation, not only in the processes in terms of moving away from waterfall to agile, but even the technologies were very, very different from what they used to be in the last few decades. And in this decade, the entire landscape is very different. And I think two big factors that change that is the fact that with the cloud and open source, these two are I guess the biggest game changers that happened, which forced us all to change the way we're thinking about application development. And so Accion's focus was to recognize that there's going to be a huge opportunity to focus on what now everybody calls digital technologies. And we started pretty small 9 years ago. And in the process, what we have done is we have actually done several acquisitions. All of them are focused largely on technology capability acquisitions. And so as a result of that, we are today roughly about 2,600 plus employees. We have about 20 global offices. We have 6 development centers, largely in some in the US, some in India, most in India, and some in Southeast Asia. What we call as emerging tech and technologies that we largely focus on are the ones that you see on the screen. Pretty much obvious today, but 10 years ago, these were not necessarily very obvious. And these have been our focus since several years now. And we have acquired and developed skills in all of these, both through internal recruitment as well as a few acquisitions, like the strategic acquisitions that we have made. So as Accion, because we focus 100% on digital technologies, we have been really fortunate to work with several companies who are early adopters of digital. And the early adopters are largely technology companies who build products or platforms, SaaS applications, technology-enabled services, and so on. These are businesses where technology forms a core part of their organization. And we have been fortunate to work with several such organizations and worked in product engineering across many, many industries. In this process, we have, we've been fortunate to witness the best practices of, how do organizations reinvent themselves as digital companies. And so we feel we may be able to help everyone in terms of, helping them take the tough journey to go from conventional to digital. So without further ado, I think we are all stuck today in a very unique situation, and I think we have to acknowledge that, and we have to see really what is it that this new normal is going to do for our lives. So Himesh, I know you are stuck in Philadelphia. Can you throw some light on what you see as the change in this new normal?
Absolutely. Well, Ash, where I'm at in New Jersey, Philadelphia area, all non-essential businesses have been ordered to shut, and only essential businesses are operational at this time. And I'm sure there's a similar scenario all over the country right now. Non-essential industries like entertainment, travel, hospitality, they all have been affected. And I did some digging up to understand if all non-essential businesses are indeed affected. Are they not growing as much as they were? Are they seeing revenue losses? And as you can see, I put together a slide to do a comparison. So as you can see on these slides, there are two companies that are in the entertainment industry, AMC and Netflix. I did a quick stock price check on both of these, and the findings were really very interesting. As you can see on the left, the stock prices of AMC, it was in gradual decline pre-COVID era. So if you look anytime before the end of January, they were gradually declining. And at the same time, the stock prices of Netflix were on a gradual incline in the same time frame. So the writing was on the wall, just that the rate was gradual. Now, if you look at the post-COVID situation, AMC stocks have been plummeting in a free fall, while Netflix has been, rapidly soaring. And I'm sure AMC would be in some kind of a digital transformation journey. And as you may know, these are typically multi-year plans, right? But however, on this in this extraordinary situations, they do not have too much time, do they? Right? It seems they might need a ventilator equivalent in transformation. There's a sense of urgency that I can see. The multi-year plan will now have to be shrink to a few months, or rather few weeks, right? So Ash, let me ask you, is there a way to, drastically accelerate the digital transformation journey?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to really belittle or trivialize the difficulty of doing digital transformation. I know that is not merely a set of technologies, and it's not just a quick fix solution is very tempting to talk about. So I certainly don't want to trivialize the difficulties in undertaking a transformation journey of this kind. However, I think purely from a technology perspective, there are quite a few things that are required as prerequisites before we can undertake any kind of digital journey. And what I've done here is, before we try to see, can we accelerate a plan? We need to identify what exactly do we mean by digital transformation, and not from a business transformation perspective, but largely focusing on the technology aspect of the digital transformation. And purely from a technology perspective, I put some points together to see what were the what seems like a natural progression of steps that we need to take to be able to create a digital platform for our organization. And the first, I think, that comes to my mind is the infrastructure is very different in a digital application and a digital platform. So the first thing is, we of course we adopted cloud, and not every organization has yet adopted the cloud, but right now the de facto standard is virtualization to the level of a container rather than a level of a server. So though we had virtual servers and instances before, now we deploy applications in containers, which becomes a significantly higher level of flexibility than it used to be, even with virtual servers. And so containerized architecture is a given today, because with the speed at which we want to be able to respond to changes in the marketplace with changes in our applications, we cannot have the luxury of having slow deployment processes. And to speed up these processes and all the dependencies put together, I think containerization is one capability that needs to be there as the ground reality of any kind of digital transformation journey. So containerized architecture, that's the first part. And of course, the second aspect of that is the architectural aspect, which is it needs to be event driven, which means, when we put together a complex application, all the different parts should be able to talk to each other rather than knowing each other very well and having each other's APIs or functional calls. We should be able to have events which are published and subscribed by different components, so that they are loosely coupled, and effectively it becomes easier for us to make changes in any one component. So all the best practices, I'm sure everybody in the audience already is familiar with containerization, microservices, is a given standard today. 5 years back, customers used to be afraid of evaluating these standards when we talked about them. But I think today there is a general consensus that an event-driven containerized infrastructure is something that needs to be there as an underlying platform for any digital application. And so this is the first thing. After that, once you have a containerized event-driven infrastructure, then you undertake two different activities. One is all the core business applications and core business capabilities need to be API enabled. That means we need to be able to access our core business APIs with no intervention in terms of manual operations. So there are two aspects to the automation and API enablement. One is just automate all the manual processes that you can. And the second is all the core business processes and capabilities need to be exposed as APIs. Again, this is not, there's nothing new about this. It's just that there's a sequence of dependency. And the third and the parallel activity to that is to create a shared platform services model, which means, basic capabilities like role-based access control, identity access management, global search, all of these are capabilities that need to be there in every application, and there's no point in duplicating all of these. And so we need to have some sort of shared platform services which can be used by all the different applications in our organization. So the shared platform services and the natural choice of such shared platform services is to use cloud and open source technology, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of these platform services. Then the next step is creating an integrated data platform. That means once you have created a containerized infrastructure, you've API enabled all your core applications, created shared platform services, then now you can start pulling data from all the different sources in the organization, ingesting them into a data lake, and then building some sort of virtual semantic layer on top, which will allow us to analyze the data and use it in our digital applications in the front end. And that it's only after we have all of these that we can successfully create truly digital applications. Now, even some of the aspects of what we think is digital applications, mandatory requirements, in addition to, of course, great user experience, is the way in which users interact with with applications. And the first point that we normally consider as a requirement of a digital application is the conversational interface. And what we mean by conversational interface, not just chatbots and as voice, where human beings are replaced by a system and an automated response system. What we are talking about is the way in which users interact with systems cannot be the traditional menu-driven navigational interface. It needs to be converted into a conversational interface where human beings can ask questions to the software. Whether the software responds to simulate a human being is not really important. The application needs to respond in a way that it presents the data that it can, it has, rather than try to simulate a human being. So what we talk about when we call it conversational interface, it means we should be able to, human beings should be able to use conversations, and applications should respond with data and information that it has. The second aspect of that is personalization. That means we need to keep track of everything that the user does so that we are able to personalize the experience that the user has with the application. So we cannot make the user do the same thing again and again. And that's another aspect of digital applications. The other part is, of course, between human beings, we should be able to integrate very easily. So the whole social integration needs to be an aspect of every digital application. The other aspect is intelligence. That means we need to be able to use intelligence. The data should enable us to take intelligent decisions, not only once a quarter or once a month, but on the fly. That means in the application, we should be able to learn about the user, take decisions across entire customer base, for example, or across the entire organization, and we should be able to respond as fast as possible to every user's experience. And the last point, of course, is intelligent devices on the edge. So we have now everything is smart, everything is intelligent in the world, and so we should be able to access and control all of these smart devices on the edge. So to be able to build such digital applications, we cannot do that without those preceding steps of the containerized event-driven architecture, automation, API enablement, shared platform services, and integrated data platform. And if this all sounds like very conceptual, so why don't I just convert this whole thing into a architecture or a picture to see what are the components of a platform? How does the platform look that enables us to do all of these things and build digital applications on top? So here is a picture that I would like to show you, is what we call as the target digital platform architecture. Now you'll see that there are several components here. There is front end personalized UX in the front. Then it has got one big blob at the back with API abstraction, containerized microservices, and event-driven architecture, platform services, integration with existing business applications, data lake. And when you say platform services, there's a big list behind, like identity access management, alerts and notifications, workflow, content management, recommendation, full text search, and the list goes on. And so, what we consider the basic requirements to build any digital applications is all of these components are required. And this, the slide I had before in terms of all the steps are the ones that determine each and every component here. And so not even one of this is optional. We can choose which technologies to use to implement any particular component, but the component and the capability needs to be there in almost any application. And in our experience of having built several hundred such applications, I can confidently tell you that almost every part of this architecture is used by almost every customer of ours. So the question is, how do you undertake this journey? And this sounds like a relatively complex architecture that typically in the current reality of any enterprise is that many of these components are missing. Existing applications are all mostly monolithic. You need to be able to take them, peel them out and peel capabilities out of your core applications and build microservices. And it doesn't seem like something that you can accelerate. So Himesh, returning back to your original question, can we really accelerate developing something like this? Because let me show you the complexity of the problem. Not only are we talking about, sorry?
Yeah, I can only imagine the amount of complexity that would be involved in putting all of this together.
Yeah, because if you look at, Yeah, and look at the different technologies, and these are only cloud and open source technologies that will go into creating an architecture like this. Okay, there's so many of them. The big question is, what, do we really need to build all of this? Does every organization need to build all of this? Can't we just get a cloud-based service which provides all of these, combined together into easy to use, out-of-the-box capabilities? I wish. I think the maturity of this, all of the best practices and the technologies that are there in this architecture is not yet reached a level where we can just expect out-of-the-box capabilities to build complex enough applications. Yes, there are technologies like low code and no code systems where you can build relatively simple applications, but when it goes and penetrates deep into our organizations, many of the applications we build are, or the roadmap is like a typical multi-year roadmap. You have to undertake all the different steps of the infrastructure and the API integration, and all of these are multi-year plans. And it is, of course, a relatively complex affair with all these different technologies involved. So the question really that, and Himesh, we have done this journey and we have undertaken this journey separately for, several customers. And I think the big learning for us was that, why are we repeating ourselves? The basic rule of software is just do not repeat yourself. And we started investing in creating what we can call as reusable components or platforms about 5 odd years back. And I think we have reached a level of maturity today where we can say that a significant part of this architecture we can consider to be reusable. Now, if you look at this slide, what we have done here is, the Accion red color represents all the different parts of this architecture, which you can, for all practical purposes, reuse from one application to the other and one enterprise to the other. The boxes in white are the ones that you have to build custom. We cannot pick the core business capabilities of entities and workflows of any organization or any business model and replicate them as is in any other business. That's what defines the core business. And so you cannot really recreate entity microservices and workflow microservices. You have to integrate. So integration has to be specific. The front end is a place where we almost never have the luxury of saying, hey, why don't we just use a standard theme or one of these standard templates and build a digital application. It has never worked in our history. Every customer, every organization wants to create a unique and very, very specific user experience for every customer and every user. And therefore, that part has to be custom built. Your backend entity services have to be custom built, workflows have to be custom built, integration has to be custom built, and analytics, at least some part of the analytics needs to be built, custom built. So, but if you look at how many different other things that go into building this platform, there are significant amount of components in this that can be reused. And so what we did was, we said, our customers have basically two types of needs. They are either organizations which are moving their applications to the cloud, which is the first part of digital transformation, which is, creating a virtualized, containerized infrastructure. And that becomes a typical first step for anyone. And, either they decide to go on the public cloud with AWS, GCP, Azure, or they will stick to a virtualized infrastructure on premise. And we have several customers who still have containerized infrastructure on premise. Either way, that becomes the first choice, and that determines largely which set of technologies would be best suited for creating an application like this. And so what Accion has done as part of this infrastructure is have two different roadmaps or set of components. One set of components which are suited, which are primarily open source components, which can be used either on premise or on the cloud, and the second set of components which are cloud specific components. That means if it is AWS specific components, Azure specific components, or GCP specific components, as well as some proprietary service providers who can be integrated into these platform services and other common capabilities. So the end result of all this, and of course, I don't want to spend too much time on explaining these components because this is not a technical webinar as much as what is the value we can generate. So if you look at this and we compare this to the original roadmap of digital transformation, there's significant amount of saving that you can do by adopting all of these capabilities that we have built. And we ourselves have experienced this in acceleration, because today when we build digital platforms for our customers using Breeze, almost every customer of ours in the last 3 to 4 years has benefited with the acceleration that we have provided by using Breeze. So this, of course, this is one attempt in expanding the scope of how many different people we can help with Breeze, and that's the objective of this webinar, of course. So I think the level of acceleration is certainly quite significant. Himesh, maybe this also sounds like a bit too good to be true, to be honest. If I were in the place of any person and were to hear that, oh, you have one magical digital transformation platform which would significantly accelerate my digital journey, it seems a little hard to believe. And why don't you can we really give some examples? Has really this platform benefited anyone? How much acceleration? What is the real impact we can give because of this?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a case study of a large utilities company that we helped in their digital transformation journey. So in this organization, as you may know, already know Ash, they're into supplying water to its customers. They're operational within 16 states in the country. They have upwards of 7,000 employees all around the country, and a significantly large portion of that employee base is focused on technology. Having said that, they had more than 5 ERP systems, all on premise, and yet most of their customer facing processes were manual, call center driven. If I were to explain you the situation, it was so bad that when a customer called for a billing complaint, the guy on the other side couldn't help him with another query for, let's say, a service request. The systems were so siloed that there was no complete 360-degree view of the customer himself. And of course, as you may imagine, the customer satisfaction score, or CSAT, as you may know, was at an all-time low. The organization went under a leadership change a couple of years back, and they realized that they had to go digital, and they put a 5-year roadmap for digital transformation together. And the way they wanted to do this was, to go step by step, by tackling the infrastructure first, right? And then use virtualization. Then they wanted to create a centralized API layer by integrating all the disparate ERP systems, after which they could create a shared platform for basic common services like you explained earlier. And then the data layer was next. That would help them in the business intelligence aspect of their applications. And only after this groundwork was in place, they could focus on creating digital applications. Also, the way they wanted to roll out these applications was to release to internal customers first, and then their partners, the field service representatives, and the last ones to get benefited were the customers. So by the time the customers would be actually impacted, it would be already 3 years since they started the digital transformation journey, and that too assuming everything goes right. Luckily, we entered the game, and using platforms like Breeze, we were able to shrink this timeline because we had a lot of pre-built components, and the result being we were able to release much faster. We were able to directly handle digital applications aspect of the journey, uh, and within 1 year we were able to deliver 10 digital applications, um, including customer facing applications, not just internal applications but also customer facing applications. um, and we were able to provide self-servicing portal for their customers that not only enabled them to view and pay their bills online, but advanced features like bill prediction to know how much I would be charged the next month, how much water am I using uh, this month. If there is any anomalies, for example, if I'm using more than a normal of water, and if there is any leaks, then I need to be intimated in real time. I need to be notified in real time, and all these, using AI/ML, we were able to deliver, and that too in a first few months of the kickstarting this project. As you can imagine, the CSAT score went up soaring high because the value that the applications could deliver was so immense. So Ash, this is just one example, but using Breeze, we were able to help many such organizations that span across multiple industries to accelerate their digital transformation journey, and that too significantly. A significant aspect of their time and cost was saved using platforms like Breeze.
Thanks, Amish. I think, of course, we can drill down into, how exactly Breeze works, what are the different components. There's so many, things that we can talk about in terms of how this whole journey works, and, how it. But what I'd like to do at this point in time is to see if there are, specific questions that anybody has that we may address, so that there's so many areas that we can drill down into Breeze and into some of the experience we've had. But it'll really nice if we can get a few questions on areas that you may like us to talk about in more detail. So, any questions?
I think, Ash, there were a couple of questions in the questions bar. Probably we could read them.
Yeah.
And
can you read the questions and then we answer them one by one?
Yeah, sure. The first one is, so what exactly is Breeze? Is it a software platform that we can buy? Is it a hosted service? Can you explain further? Is the question.
Let me see if I heard the question right. What exactly is Breeze? Is it a software application that you can install? Is it a cloud hosted service? Is it like a platform that you can, is a hosted platform? Exactly how can you use it? I think it's a great question.
Right.
I think basically Breeze is a set of components that can be, which are typically installed on our customers' infrastructure. Like I mentioned before, we have customers who have on-premise installations as well as on-cloud installations. And as part of the initial setup of Breeze, we basically install this for the customer on their infrastructure. So the entire application is as good as having built it yourself. full control over the entire applications. All the components are provided with source code, and therefore there is full control on each and every component of Breeze. And that's how Breeze is provided.
Right.
I lost my audio for.
Yeah.
You may have lost my voice for a few seconds.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard my answer, Himesh, but yeah. So
to a large
I hope that
extent,
answered the question.
yeah, and to a large extent, the platform itself is, agnostic of any cloud infrastructure. Like in the slides that you showed earlier, there all the components that you need to have are in there, and then you can always swap them with the cloud-based or hosted components.
Right. Excellent. Any other question that that is there in the list?
Okay, I think there is a second one, and the second one asks, can Breeze help with complex service-oriented organizations? Especially when there are a lot of manual steps involved and manual processes for service delivery.
I guess I'm sure we have handled quite a few of those kind of customers as well. I think one that comes to my mind, of course, we have organizations who provide technology-enabled services, payroll services and application design services. We ourselves are an example of an organization which has a very complex service, and we ourselves use Breeze. All our customers are able to interact with us and use Breeze to interact with us. So as such, absolutely. And we have maybe Hamish, you can run through entertainment example of the production company,
Right.
just to highlight how exactly it worked.
Sure. So, in contrast to the American the water industry example that we gave you, where it's more of a product and a relatively simple use case to deliver a portal. In contrast to that, the entertainment industry example is a little more complicated, where they were dealing with challenges to onboard their new customers. So their typical customer base was Hollywood studios, and they typically provide services to provide budgeting and financial accounting, costing services to these Hollywood studios for any of the big Hollywood project. And the big aspect of that was onboarding a new project, right? So every time any movie or a documentary or a TV series goes into production, there's enormous amount of planning that goes in, and the associated costs and timelines and budgets are fairly complicated. So there were the process that they use to onboard new projects and new customers was fairly manual, because every project is different from one another. The movies are different from uh, uh, commercials, and then the TV series are a lot different from documentaries. So the amount of information and the depth of all this information that was captured varied from one to another. So there wasn't really a standard process that they could set up in capturing all this information. So what we did for them was to create a platform.
I think Hamish.
Yeah. Ash, you still there?
Yeah, no. Go ahead, please. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So using platform like Breeze, what we are able to do is to provide a flexible way for them to quickly change their processes for any kind of onboarding customer on the fly, so that for any different kind of production, you are quickly able to evolve your system such that your workflows are customizable. The amount of data that you capture is quickly customizable, and the amount of approvals and the processes that you go through to onboard any of these was flexible enough to accommodate as many changes as you can throw at it. So that's the kind of fairly complex application that we built for them to onboard new projects and new customers.
Brilliant. Thanks, Himesh, for that example. I think we have several more examples and that we can talk about, and of course deep dive into any aspect of technology that people may have questions about. We have a little more time left, and if there are any additional questions, we're happy to take it. And if there are no more questions, Paul, we can maybe hand it back to you. We should be pretty much done.
Ash, Himesh, thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to email Accion Labs, and we'll get right back to you. Just so you know, this presentation is being recorded, and we will have this posted on the Accion Labs website in the next couple days, and the slides will be available as well. But if you want them directly, please feel free to email solutions@accionlabs.com, and we'll get them to you immediately. Thank you very much, everybody. Ash, Himesh, thank you. This was terrific. A lot of great information, and we look forward to seeing everybody on future webinars. Thanks.
Our pleasure, Paul. Thank you very much.